But I wanted to kind of talk about where Adobe sees the future of publishing and what we're trying to offer you all as part of our platform and services. And so I think what's interesting is we could take a little bit of a look back in history and reminisce together about the original iPad, where this was kind of the only device we had to really worry about getting our content on. And back in 2010, Adobe worked with Condé Nast. We helped launch Wired onto the tablet, and at that time it was a standalone app. And anyone that was producing for the tablet produced a standalone app, right? So this was back when the tablet was first introduced, and we thought it was going to be the solution to all of our problems. But we started to complain about those standalone apps, and we said, you know what, it's really hard for people to discover our content. We feel like we're being mismatched into the App Store, and we're sitting there right next to Angry Birds and all the other apps and games that are out there, and people can't find our brand. So Apple, please help us. Please give us a way to curate this experience, to make us more discoverable. And so Apple listened, and they gave us the newsstand in iOS 5, and we had this nice little bookshelf here that showed all the covers of our magazines. And for a while, it was glorious, right? Everyone saw a little bit of a boost and a bump in their sales because of it. And then things took a little bit of a turn with iOS 7, and what was something of a growth pattern started to see a kind of a flat line, and in some cases a decline. And some of that can be attributed to what the changes Apple made in their new design scheme with iOS 7. And you could see where we went from a kind of bookshelf paradigm where you could see little mini covers on this thing to a somewhat nondescript icon in iOS 7. And then even trying to figure out which magazines have I not read the latest issue of, right? You see like little dots there underneath Men's Health and the New York Times and Wall Street Journal, and I can't even see the rest there, but you guys all kind of understand that problem. And so then we started asking Apple for a different way, like, can you help us get out of the newsstand? Can you give us a new way to reach our audience? And so again, Apple listened to us, so they decided to kill off the newsstand and came out with Apple News. And so what's really interesting about Apple News is it's kind of paving the way or bringing us into this world that we already need to be in, and that is the atomization of our content. We need to think about ways of serving up more bite-sized nuggets of content to our users in a more consumable format. And so what's really interesting about the dissolution of Newsstand and the rise of Apple News is that all of you that had Newsstand applications, when the user upgraded to iOS 9, they didn't go away. They were left in this folder called Newsstand, and then you saw a bunch of little icons. And for users that have been using your apps for years, they may have never actually seen your application icon. And so they may look at this folder and say, I have no idea what this is, right? And they're going to tap on that, and they're going to see probably the same experience that they've seen over the past number of years, which is that kind of bookshelf library packaged up content that represents your issues. And so if we look at this image on the left, this is Adobe Inspire magazine, and this is probably familiar to most of you because a lot of you are publishing either with us or with a similar digital publishing platform that produces content in this digestible issue-like format. And what we've seen from the analytics and the data that we've gathered around all the different publishers that use our platform is that generally what happens is a user comes in and a new issue is published, and you get a spike of engagement, and that lasts for a couple of days, and then it quickly tails off until you publish the next issue, right? So you get a huge dip in engagement, nobody comes back, and then they return back the next month that you publish or the next week, or if you're publishing every 2 months, what have you. And so that wasn't really good. That's not a great user experience, and it's not giving you guys continuous engagement, and it's causing people to just ignore those apps over time. And so what we've done is we've built out a new platform where we're trying to break this down and give you a way to create a content-first reading experience, where we're going to focus more on the articles and we're going to focus more on the user experience. We've heard a lot today about crafting that user experience, how it's all about the user experience, putting the user first, giving them something that is easy to digest, something that's easy for them to read at a glance. They know what's going on. And this is what we're trying to do, right? So we're trying to give you guys a way to build that content-first experience in a very editorially driven manner. And so what we did, just like we partnered with Wired back before the iPad came out, we went to a publisher that wanted to really kind of take a little bit of risk here and work with us to kind of shape that paradigm. And so we partnered with Fast Company. And if you look at this image, this is Fast Company's newsstand app where, like most of you have seen, it's got that, buy the issue, subscribe, and then you got the, it's not ugly, but it's not right away intuitive. I don't know if I'm interested in all the stories that are in that magazine. I can only tell really from the cover a couple of the headlines that would appear inside that issue. And they're not taking advantage of all the wealth of other content that they actually produce. And so we worked with them to create a brand new app that appeared on the phone and the tablet, and it's based with HTML content. And you'll see it's a very different approach. When the user launches the app, they're immediately immersed in the content instead of having to download an issue or a package of stuff. And so they're grabbed by the attention-getting headlines, and they can flip through the different stories, and they can look at the magazine content as well as content that's served up from their website. And all the while, they're gathering analytics around what that user's doing and what they're looking at. And so shortly after the release of this app, we started gathering some stats to try and figure out, is this successful? Is this doing what we hoped it would do? And it's performed pretty well. So we've seen that readers generally visit the app around 3.5 times per week, and 75% of those users are actively consuming content. So they're not just launching it and then bouncing out, they're actually engaging with us for a while. As probably would be not a surprise to anyone in this room, but about 6 months ago when we were looking at this, it was a bit of a surprise, but we didn't realize that the skew or the shift in readers was going to be so heavily geared towards phones versus tablets. So when we saw this, this was an interesting little piece of data. And you can attribute that a lot to the size at which these phones are now. Because if you were to go back 2 years ago and start talking about targeting like the iPhone 4, a lot of us would think, that's not really a suitable screen size for consuming long-form content. And then we started to get the reviews in, and we wanted to see what real readers were thinking about the app. And this one was kind of, we cherry-picked this one because it was pretty good. But the guy said, "Man, I love this app. It's what content providers should strive to do, deliver the content in a manner that makes us want to use it all the time. Fast Company, if you're reading this, sell this format to others who just don't get it." It's pretty good, right? It's a good testimonial. I feel like if I could figure out who that was, I would send them a little bit of a bonus or a free tablet or something. But so what we did with Fast Company, the learnings that we had from working with Fast Company went into the new generation of product that we have that we launched at the end of July. So it's pretty new. And we focused the foundation of this product on 4 key topics. One is continuous publishing. So the thought or the notion of being able to give you guys ways to continuously pump new content into those apps. Another way of creating a brand new native experience that is designed by you and controlled by you and brings readers directly into the content. Enhancing the way that we integrate with our own analytics platform, and then giving you guys a lot of flexibility in the way that you start to work with outside agencies or partners in bringing content into your platform. So we've gone out and built a whole bunch of APIs and ways to bring in external contributors without having to give them, the keys to the kingdom. So what do we mean when we say continuous publishing, right? So when we look at some stats around general user behaviors when we're publishing digital editions on a monthly basis, you get about a little over two times per month that they're engaging with that app at around 16 minutes per month. That number goes up significantly for publishers that are creating content on a weekly basis, but then that number really amplifies when you're producing content on a daily basis, which is what we saw with Fast Company. So you're getting increased metrics with people that are producing content on a daily basis. People start to expect that there's going to be something new in there for them to look at, so they'll keep coming back, versus if you're publishing stuff on a monthly or weekly basis, and then they don't really have as much incentive to go into your app. So what we did is, we have today's print replica model, which is basically just giving us a way to bring issue-based content to a digital device, and we call that folios. That was the paradigm that many of you use to publish your editions. You would have a bunch of different articles, you'd bundle them up into a traditional issue, and then you would publish that issue out to your app. The new version of the platform goes with an article-centric approach, where you can still take those same articles and you can bundle them together into what we call a collection, and that could be the equivalent of your issue. But those articles live completely independent from anything else in the system, so that you can use them to create hybrid collections or brand new collections that are on a topical or timely or thematic basis, like the best of 2015, maybe a photography collection, maybe something that's regional. And so another big another big problem that we're trying to solve in the new version of the platform is ways of creating content. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to get a lot of content into the system. And so to do that, we've continued to support InDesign. So if you're creating anything within those tools, we continue to support that. We also have created plugins for PowerPoint, so you can actually bring presentations into. I know that's probably not of interest to anyone here. Does anyone use PowerPoint? I'm using PowerPoint right now. But what we've done is we've dramatically increased our support for HTML-driven content. And if HTML or responsive design is not part of your strategy for delivering content, it really needs to be. And as I go around talking to publishers and corporations and universities and catalog publishers, this has been the number one challenge, is getting them to shift their brain from, I need to create this inside of InDesign, I need to make this pixel perfect, to going into HTML as part of the design-driven approach, right? And a lot of people think that HTML is ugly and hard to work with. And so we're trying to come out with tools and services that make it easier to produce good-looking HTML in an easier manner. So we have, of course, our own Dreamweaver platform, which is still kind of developer-y in terms of the use of that application. But we recently announced that we have a new version of Adobe Muse coming out that supports responsive design. And if anyone's used Muse in here, it's like using InDesign but for the web. So it's all user-driven or user interface-driven kind of development, and it's not going in there typing out code. So it's very different, and designers seem to be flocking towards that. So giving you guys an easy on-ramp to produce responsive content is one of the objectives there. But then, of course, we're not trying to limit the exclusivity of producing HTML content to Adobe tools, so we can bring in anything that's HTML into the platform. But as part of the approach that we're going here, we're really trying to educate our customers on the use of content management systems to produce your content and giving you on-ramps to bring that content in. So we have developed integrations that are out there. They're available for Adobe Experience Manager. That's our own funky little wheel thing up at the top. But what's probably more prevalent to folks in this room is the integrations that we have with Drupal and WordPress. And those are free, they're public, they're available today. You can just grab them, install them, and then any content that's in the system, whether it's published on your site or not, can go into DPS to be shown inside of your app. And you can change the presentation of that. So if you want to remove some navigation elements and just have it focused on the content, you want to change the style to be more suitable for mobile versus tablet. That's all part of this process, and that's where we're seeing a lot of potential. This is all done using our APIs. So if you have a different content management system, maybe it's a proprietary one, maybe it's Joomla, maybe it's Sitecore, maybe it's WebSphere, maybe it's Red Dot, maybe it's Tridian. Now I'm trying to think of all the other ones that I forgot. As long as it can work with APIs, we can get it over there. And what's really interesting about this is you got a lot of information coming out about bringing content into Apple News, bringing it over to Facebook Instant Articles, and coincidentally I saw the Apple News spec I think 2 weeks ago, and the format that they're using or that they're requesting for their HTML content is very similar to what you would need to produce to bring your content into DPS. So if you're already producing HTML content that's going to look great in Apple News, you could also bring it into here. And they also came out with plugins for Drupal and WordPress. So recognizing that a CMS-driven approach is a great way to bring your content into these distribution platforms. When we talk about measurable impact, Adobe Analytics is used by a lot of you for measuring kind of behavior on the web. But what we've done for our app analytics is we've enhanced that integration by allowing you to track conversion metrics, ad impressions, and pathing reports, which is really an interesting thing that we didn't have before. But that allows you to basically see how people are coming into the app and then where your highest bounce out rate is. So giving the ability to see that, you can start to make decisions on where you're going to place the content, what you're going to promote, what you're going to demote, and how frequently you're going to publish new items. We, of course, have support for push notifications within the system, but what's really cool is we've now introduced the ability to do in-app messaging, and that's something I'm really excited about, because what that allows you to do is when you think about push notifications, that's to bring you inside of the app. And then in-app messaging can be used to do things like interstitial ads when somebody first launches the application, right? So the first time they launch, maybe you want to greet them with a particular video, maybe you want to show them a special that you're having, maybe you want to promote another application that could be a utility app or a companion app. You can promote those when they come into it. You can segment that message, so it could be based on geolocation. So if you know that you're having an event in a particular city and you want to promote that to people that are in that city, you could do that. So lots of different possibilities for in-app messaging, because this is giving you the ability to do messages on the fly using any of the metrics that we capture inside of Adobe Analytics to people that are inside of your app. So when I talk about engaging experiences, again, we have the old standard on the left, the new kind of design-driven, easy access to content approach on the right. When you break that down, what we're really giving you the ability to do is create collections and promote things like, for instance, your latest issue up front. So we're not trying to completely take that away from you guys. You can still promote that. But being able to bring forward particular packages or collections of content that you want to promote. Maybe if I'm Sports Illustrated, I want to package up everything related to the World Series in a collection of article content, right? Or if I'm a recipe or a health-based magazine, I can promote things in the new year and say, like, these are the best workouts or the best diets to take a look at in 2016, and then gather together all of my evergreen content that I've been producing over the years. So flexible packages of content, every one of these collections can be monetized, right? So you slap a product ID on it from Google or Apple, and all of a sudden now you have a new SIP that you just created out of evergreen content that you have already floating in the system. The ability to promote articles right to the front instead of bearing it down inside the app. This is just like every other platform that we're seeing, bringing articles forward, articles first. Bringing new opportunities for advertising that can either be static for branding or it can be tappable to bring you out to a website. We do an in-app browser. And then video. This is really cool. We're going to give you the ability to stream or embed video right into these browse pages where you want to be able to have people looking through your content. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. So that's what we have available. All of that is available like today immediately. So if anyone wanted more information on that platform or wanted to talk to me, I'll be around afterwards. So everything that you just saw is available now. But what we have here is I wanted to showcase a couple of things that we're working on. We release new updates to the platform every 3 weeks. So we're on a 3-week sprint cycle. And everything that I'm just about to show is things that we're targeting to be completed and released before the end of the year. So we got some exciting stuff coming. One of which is the ability to directly integrate with Adobe Acrobat. Right, so if you're doing straight from print publishing or replica publishing and you want to save time, you can just launch Acrobat, open your PDF, push a button, it's in your app, done. Or you could have tons of legacy content that may have been produced using an app called Quark Express that exists in a PDF, right? And so you want to bring that over into your application to monetize it. It's evergreen content. You could be looking at a publisher like Scientific American that goes back into the early 1900s or late 1800s, and some of that stuff's really interesting and available, relevant today. Bring it over. You make a PDF of it, whether it's OCR scanned or from a different thing. Anything that can create a PDF, Microsoft Word, anything. Now you can bring it into the app with no friction. And where it also comes into play is now that you have this voluminous amount of content, we're finally going to introduce in-app search. So you're going to basically have your phone or your tablet app, you tap on the little menu, it opens up, you get the little search bar there, you tap in your word, and then you're going to see returned a list of results that is article content or collections. And then you can tap on that and then begin reading it, right? So you're talking about the huge amounts of content that you have. It could be something that's very valuable from people that want to search anything that's related to politics, sports, health, anything, right? Search is huge. So being able to do that without any additional development or work on the publisher's end is great. And this is going to do things like read all the metadata from the articles for your hit results, as well as the full text index of your content. When I talked about video on cards, look at that. Isn't that awesome? So you launch the app and you can see, it's just going to bring so much life to these apps. You can imagine if I was, Rodale, somebody's like doing a workout, and then I can see that as I'm flipping through the different content in there, it's just going to start playing. Or I could be, Wired doing a weird experiment, and it just shows up right there. It's going to bring a lot of life into these apps. Some other things, like we're going to have the ability to do parallax effects inside of your apps. So being able to scroll up on your content and then define which items you want to be parallaxed. Some really interesting stuff with device tilt, so you get that kind of 3D effect. This is all part of the apps. No development work. We're not asking you to create HTML, use JavaScript libraries, anything like that. This is just all part of the platform. And then card animations. So you see how you got the text kind of zooming in from the side. This is all about giving you guys the ability to craft that beautiful app experience. And then, of course, snapping cards, right? So being able to make sure that you get a little more stickiness on some of the articles that you want to promote. So those are all features. That's all stuff we're going to do by the end of this year, in addition to some other things like I was just talking to someone at the lunch break about integration with Adobe Slate. Anyone that's familiar with that? It's a mobile authoring tool for creating responsive HTML content. We're going to be able to bring that content right into the platform. But just running down the list of like what's in DPS for publishers, right? The ability to if anyone's been publishing with us before, all of the content that you've created just comes right across. So if you've spent years publishing with DPS before, that all works. It's a single license. Responsive HTML article support, where you have the ability to do in-app purchasing, direct entitlement with a user database. We have a new thing called all access subscriptions. So when we talk about unlocking that voluminous amount of content, we're giving you guys the ability to define memberships as part of your media brand so that you can say, all right, you're going to subscribe to me for $40 a year. I'm going to give you access to everything. So that could be web content that I'm putting in the app. That could be special interest collections. That could be my archive of stuff that I've created since the past 50, 60 years, all based upon one subscription. And then when they stop subscribing, they get nothing, right? So the Spotify or Netflix-like approach to your brand of magazine content. We have the ability to do metered content previews so that you can give people a taste of what you're producing, and then after 5 or 6 articles per day, maybe you're going to hit them with a paywall and say, now I want you to become a subscriber or a member. We talked about the integration with AEM, WordPress, and Drupal. We have other CMS integrations in the works. And then we have a lot of tools that we're doing as part of the ecosystem that are going to make it easier for you to preview and proof your content before you produce it, right? So it's not just like creating the content and then shooting it out there without understanding how it's going to work and look. So we understand that you guys are all content producers, and we want to give you smart ways to collaborate with your peers, to collaborate with people that may be up a little bit higher that need more editorial oversight, people that are outside freelancers. So smart ways of giving you the ability to proof and comment and annotate the content before you actually publish it. So thanks everyone. That's basically what I wanted to talk to you about. And if anyone has any questions, I don't know, do we have time for it? Nope, I'm out. Great. Well then, I'll see anyone at the break. Thanks,